From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the news at 10, live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Amarachi Ubani.
Good evening and welcome tonight. Sessions at the World Economic Forum on Africa open in Abuja as President Goodluck Jonathan says a kidnap of Chibok schoolgirls is the beginning of the end for terror in Nigeria. The United States intelligence says abducted Chibok schoolgirls may have been split up. Chinese premier announces increase in credit line for Africa from $10 billion to $30 billion. And South Africa's President Jacob Zuma wins a commanding victory in the country's general election.
On Business News tonight, delegates at the World Economic Forum call for a technology-based Nigerian economy to drive growth.
And on Sports News tonight, African champions Nigeria move up one place in latest FIFA rankings. World champions Spain retain top spot for 124th week.
President Goodluck Jonathan is confident the abduction of over 200 Chibok girls may just be a turning point in the fight against terror. This was part of his address at today's session of the World Economic Forum. The president acknowledged offers of support by the United States, Britain, France, and China in finding the girls. In addition to his offer to help, the Chinese Premier Li Keqiang says China is willing to expand an existing credit line to several African states from $10 billion to $30 billion. Our correspondent, BC Coker, reports.
The
founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, Mr. Klaus Schwab, set the ball rolling by expressing solidarity for the abducted schoolgirls in Chibok, Borno State.
I would like to ask you all to stand for 1 minute of silence to express our solidarity and particularly our feelings with the victims, with their families, but also in the hope and in the prayer that the abducted girls are coming back soon, saying home. Thank you for this expression.
President Goodluck Jonathan reaffirmed his commitment to find the schoolgirls and expresses confidence that their rescue will mark the beginning of the end of terrorism in the country.
Let me use this unique opportunity to appreciate other countries that have expressed their commitment to help us, especially in terms of rescuing these girls that have disappeared from one of our secondary schools. The government of the United States of America, the United Kingdom, and France have also spoken with me and have expressed their commitment to help us resolve this crisis in Nigeria. I believe that the kidnap of these girls will be the beginning of end of terror in Nigeria.
That's not all. The president says his administration is passionate about creating jobs, and that's why there is a focus on agriculture, manufacturing, and the services sector.
For us in Nigeria, job creation has been the main focus of our ongoing transformation agenda. We have a lot of young people that don't even have the skills, so even if the jobs are there, they may not have the competencies to take these jobs. The Nigerian economy has grown rapidly over the past decade. It's about 7% per annum. Of course, we are now, by the last rebasing of our GDP, we are now the largest economy in the continent and the 26th globally. But this robust economy has not translated into job creation. And that's why government is working very hard. How will we, looking at the economic indices, make sure that we create jobs for our people and also improve on government revenues?
Moving on,
The Chinese Premier, Mr. Li Keqiang, assures that China is willing to support infrastructure development in Africa.
We will increase investment and financing in Africa. We will provide or add $10 billion to the committed Chinese credit line to African countries to reach a total of $30 billion. We will also put another $2 billion into the China-Africa Development Fund to make it $5 billion. We will also make good use of special loans, financing funds, commercial loans, and other modes of capital.
After the opening addresses by the Nigerian president and the Chinese premier, the forum broke into plenary sessions where the main focus is unlocking the job creation potential of the continent. BC Koka, Channels Television News.
Well, African leaders at the forum agree the need for job creation to achieve sustainable growth on the continent. They shared their views during one of the plenary sessions. Our correspondent, Bolaji Akinwale, has more.
Jobs, and job creation. That's what this session is all about.
Not just in the future.
From President Goodluck Jonathan to Rwanda's President Paul Kagame, the thought process of African leaders to make life worth living for their people was well echoed. What areas of interest do these leaders have in mind, and how do they intend to make job creation a reality?
We must encourage the private sector to invest in the real sector. So what we are doing as a government is to create that environment where the private sector will see that there are gains to be made. And when you create the environment where the private sector notices that if they invest in this sector or in this area, they will make returns. Definitely you get investors from within the country and outside the country.
To grow at the expense of others or the others lose. I think we are talking about the principles of equity, equality, and how job creation is actually being achieved, and this means wealth. How does an ordinary person get involved to participate in these activities that also increase what they get as an income? This is what we are talking about.
The needed change may only be realized when Africans imbibe a sound entrepreneurial culture.
Some of us here in Africa will rather keep the money abroad, not invest in Africa. And by doing that, you are not creating confidence. You have to invest your own money as an African to create confidence for the foreigners to bring in their money. Unless you do that, it's not just going to happen. I mean, the size of company that we're in today, even 5 years or 7 years away, we never ever expected to be this big, but the opportunities are there.
And owing to the opportunities for businesses to grow on the continent, there is a call to pay back through effective tax compliance.
We are told that we have been, as a continent, a net long-term provider of resources of money to other continents. The flow, 1.4 trillion in the last 30 years, flowing out of this continent. What are we doing? What are our governments doing to stop tax dodging, to stop this hemorrhage of resources so that we put it back in our people? That is the question.
There is no doubt that Africa is rising, but the concern is the extent to which it will rise, and this can only be determined by what the leaders take back home to execute at the end of this summit. Bolaji Akinwale for Channels Television News.
Well, staying with the World Economic Forum, the Minister of Finance, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, has challenged African leaders to implement policies that will address the glaring inequalities on the continent. The minister spoke in one of the sessions, identified security, unemployment, and infrastructure development as some of the issues that must be prioritized if the young and the vulnerable must feel the impact of government.
We recognize that Africa is not rising for everybody, that some people are left behind,
You know, there's inequality. As we've been growing, the society has become more unequal, and we've realized and recognized that. Why we are not creating enough jobs for the number of jobs needed, and some have fallen off the train. You know, those are the bottom end of the ladder. You know, so these challenges are longer term. Right now, we also face the short-term challenge of security. You know, so of course that has to be dealt with, because you know, to be able to have good development, you need to be in a secure environment. That is why it's vital that we do the maximum to bring our girls home. It's vital that we do the maximum to make Nigerians feel once more confident and safe in themselves. So those are the short-term things we must deal with. But some of the longer-term challenges that we have, such as inequality, reversing that, and also lifting those at the bottom end of the ladder, can also not be forgotten. And I think that because some of them will help us make sure that issues such as are occurring now will not happen. So we need to do in parallel two things. One, deal with the short-term problems, but at the same time tackle the longer-term ones.
In part two, after the break, ECOWAS joins a search for missing Chibok schoolgirls. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.